monkey, mantis, crane, viper, tigress. Roar!
You're a big tough guy, buddy? You just rammed into me? Ah, how do you like that? Now hit me in the face and see what happens, punk!
Kung Fu Panda is one of the most impactful and God-worthy movies of all time, with a truly inspiring story of overcoming people's negative assumptions of you and not letting that stop you from chasing your dreams and goals. This masterpiece has absolutely everything you could ever want in a movie: action, comedy, heart. It's a breathtaking cinematic viewing experience. Now, although there are 4 very iconic movies within this franchise, I'm just going to focus on the first Kung Fu Panda movie in today's video. So let's dive into this absolute godlike piece of media and the impact that it's had on not only my personal life, but on our whole society. Kung Fu Panda was the 16th movie to be released by the animation studio DreamWorks. The movie's origins can be traced back to 2006, where the original idea was that they actually wanted it to be a parody, or a piss take, if you will, of martial arts movies. However, after progressing with this, they developed this idea into the masterpiece that we all know and worship today. The movie, like most DreamWorks movies, has an absolutely iconic and star-studded cast, including Jack Black as Po, Dustin Hoffman as Master Shifu, Ian McShane as one of the greatest villains in not only DreamWorks history, but I would argue cinematic history, Tai Lung, Angelina Jolie, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu, Jackie Chan, and one of my favourite actors of all time, David Cross as the Furious Five, and also James Hong as Mr. Ping. Such an iconic cast, like lives were changed. On the 6th of June 2008, we as a society were truly blessed as Kung Fu Panda was released into the world, a day that we will truly never forget. Now, I think it's time that I stop yapping on about the facts and logic behind this movie, and that we just get into the absolute masterpiece that it truly is. The movie starts with a narration describing a legendary warrior man who kicks ass all across the land. The warrior is well respected by his fellow citizens as well as his fellow ass kickers, who think he is very epic and iconic. However, a plot twist occurs when this is shown to be a dream by our main character Po, who is awoken from his slumber by someone shouting on him. Po in this scene is established to not be an iconic warrior man and does not have the respect of his fellow citizens, and who, instead of being homies with his fellow ass kickers, is instead a stan of them. And this is important to the plot, so keep this in mind. He wishes that he could be an ass kicker. He wishes that he could be the ultimate ass kicker, but this is just not his reality. This is so sad. Now, after some shenanigans in front of his window and embarrassing himself in front of his neighbour, Po goes downstairs and is greeted by his father. Now, his father runs a noodle restaurant, and the reason that he awoke Po from his slumber was so that his fat ass would help with the family business, you know. Now, Po's father asks him what took him so long to, not only get out of bed, but to go to work. And Po responds that he was having a dream, and instead of telling his father the truth about the dream, like a normal person, he decides to lie about it. Instead of telling his father that he was dreaming about being the ultimate ass kicker, he basically lies and says that he was dreaming about noodles. Now, this leaves Po's father absolutely gobsmacked, shook to his core, and Po's father basically believes that Po having this dream was a sign from the universe that it truly is his son's destiny to take over his shop, and this makes him extremely happy. It's very wholesome, but not for Po. He does not want to run the noodle shop. He wants to be fighting, like he wants to do like kung fu. He doesn't want to serve pot noodles to people. Nobody should even have to endure pot noodles, to be honest. They are pretty grim. While Po is shaking and crying, we are then introduced to the Furious Five and Master Shifu, who are the ultimate ass kickers. Now, it's also important to point out that the Furious Five are actually the characters that Po had his dream about, so they're the characters that were like his fellow ass kickers, if you will. Master Shifu is giving the Furious Five some constructive criticism, telling them that they're disappointments. This is why Master Shifu is the best character, I can't lie. Now, as they're having their kung fu lesson, they are interrupted by a messenger who informs Shifu that Master Oogway is looking for him. Now, Master Oogway is the embodiment of being unbothered. Like, he is just so unbothered by everything. You know what? I respect it. It's very iconic behaviour. So Master Shifu runs to see Oogway, and Oogway informs him that he had a vision that Tai Lung would be returning. Now, this leaves Shifu shook to his absolute core, right? Because Tai Lung is in prison, and we're going to learn who Tai Lung is kind of later on in the movie, right? Basically, all you need to know about him at this point in the movie is that he's a big baddie and that he's in prison, a maximum security prison. So Shifu's response to this is to demand that this wee duck basically flies to the prison to ensure that Tai Lung does not escape. So he sends the wee duck, and the wee duck basically flies to the prison. So as the duck flies away, Oogway and Shifu also decide that it's time to find the Dragon Warrior, or the ultimate ass kicker. Now, after they decide to find the Dragon Warrior, the news of this travels all around the valley, and posters are put around to inform the citizens that they're going to find the Dragon Warrior. Now, this catches the attention of Po, who is absolutely shook to his core, because you have to understand, like, he is the biggest kung fu stan to ever live. Like, you might might think you're the biggest kung fu stan, but like, honey, you have nothing compared to this man. He makes everyone leave the noodle restaurant because he wants everyone to go and see who the Dragon Warrior is going to be, because he knows how iconic a moment this is. And as he's about to leave, his dad basically stops him and is like, what are you doing, you big fat mess? And he's like, father, I'm trying to go up and see who the Dragon Warrior is going to be. And his dad's like, you know what, that's fine, but you need to take this wee trolley with you and go sell as many noodles as you can. We then cut to the citizens celebrating as they've been waiting over 1,000 years to find out who the Dragon Warrior is going to be. Like, this is a really, really big deal, you know. Now, as everyone's walking up the hill, Po tries his best to carry the wee noodle cart up with him, and he just can't do it. Like, he's tried so hard, and people are like walking past them and stuff, and he's like, you know what, instead of missing the event, Po decides to leave the cart and to run up the stairs to try and see if he can catch who the Dragon Warrior is going to be. We then cut to Oogway and Shifu, who are preparing for the event, and Oogway asks Master Shifu if the Furies 5 are ready to fight, and that's when we learn that the option of who's going to be the Dragon Warrior will be between the Furies 5. Like, that's what they think is going to happen, right? So Shifu informs Oogway that they are indeed ready to fight to become the ultimate ass kicker. Now, Oogway says something to Shifu that is very important to the overall plot, and it will come back up a little bit later. He basically tells Shifu that whoever he picks to be the Dragon Warrior will not only bring peace to the valley, but will also bring peace to Shifu. We then cut back to Po, who finally made it up the stairs. However, he gets the doors shut on his face. Those horrible, nasty, crusty ass holes shut the doors in my poor guy's face, meaning that it appears to Po that he has missed out on the opportunity to watch this thing that he's been waiting his entire life to see, and this leaves him absolutely devastated. Does this stop him, however, from trying his very best to get into that venue? Absolutely no way. And this is something that I absolutely admire about this character so much, is like, no matter how many times people push him down, or no matter how many times he's told that he can't do something, like, it won't stop him from trying everything in his power to do it. And I love the fact that this has been very prevalent in his character from the very first movie, because it's a very big part of his character throughout the whole entire franchise. But this is going to be a theme throughout the movie where Po just doesn't give up, and I love that about him so much. He's such an icon. Now, Po tries many different methods to get a good view of the event and to actually try and get into the venue. However, these all fail. However, a plot twist occurs when he manages to find some fireworks and gets the idea to use them to blast himself into the event. However, while Po is partaking in all of these silly methods of getting into this venue, Oogway senses that the Dragon Warrior is near, and basically this is the cue for the Furies 5 to line up in front of Oogway, because they believe that one of them is about to get picked to be the Dragon Warrior. We then cut back to Po, who has used the fireworks to construct himself this contraption with a chair, and he's basically tied the fireworks to them so that he can blast himself into the venue so he can see who the Dragon Warrior is going to be. However, as Po sits in the chair waiting for the fireworks to take off, his father comes up the stairs and is very shocked to see what Po is doing. Po basically tells him that he wants to see who the Dragon Warrior is going to be and that he loves Kung Fu, and Po's like, I don't give a damn about pot noodles, father, let me go see who the ultimate ass kicker is going to be. And so basically it looks like Po's contraption isn't going to work. It ends up like failing, and his dad is like, let's just go back to the restaurant, let's just take the L and go back. However, a plot twist occurs yet again as the fireworks on the contraption start to go off and Po is blasted into the L, and when he falls he lands right in front of Master Oogway. And when Po awakes from his slumber, he is greeted with a finger in his face, and it is then declared that Po is the Dragon Warrior. He is the ultimate ass kicker. He has just been rewarded by the universe, the thing that he has always wanted. Now this leaves everyone absolutely shook to their cores, utterly gobsmacked, because they can't believe that this big fat bastard panda is going to be the ultimate ass kicker. Like, they just can't wrap their tiny simple minds around the fact that Po is an icon. Now Po is then brought into the temple, and Master Shifu tells the Furies 5 that Po will quit by morning. However, we all know that because Po is so resilient, that is just not going to be the case. Now, while this is happening, the wee duck from earlier in the movie that Shifu made fly to the prison to get them to ensure that Tai Lung didn't escape arrives at the prison to inform them of Shifu's message. Now, the duck informs the guards of what Shifu has demanded, and they're enraged by this. They don't understand how Shifu could worry, because Tai Lung is in a maximum security prison. Like, there's no way he's going to escape, according to the prison guards. So they're actually quite offended that Shifu would even suggest that Tai Lung would escape. So the guards basically show the duck around the prison so that the duck can go back to Shifu and tell him that everything's good and everything's all secure and stuff. And while this is happening, one of the duck's feathers actually falls over this bridge and floats all the way down to the bottom. And this is very important, so keep this in mind. Now, the wee duck is then brought to see Tai Lung by the main guard and is shown that he is surrounded by hundreds of guards with weapons ready to shoot my guy Tai Lung if he even thinks about escaping. As well as this, he's also chained up pretty well as well. So there's no way he's getting out of that, basically, is what the guards try to prove to this wee duck. So he can go back and tell Shifu to shut his goddamn mouth everything to never question his authority ever again. Now the guard basically begins to take the piss out of Tai Lung by standing on his tail and try to like wind him up, and he basically tells Tai Lung that the Dragon Warrior has been selected and it isn't him. So that's when we learn that Tai Lung was in the running to be the Dragon Warrior like the Furious 5 were, and we'll get back to that point a little bit later in the video as well. Now the duck basically tells the guard that he's seen enough and he wants to leave, and he'll go back and tell Shifu that everything's under control and that it's all good, and he'll basically tell Shifu never to question the authority of the guards ever again. Now after the duck and the guard leave Tai Lung's cell, the feather from like a bit earlier in the scene falls down to Tai Lung. We are then brought back to Po, who's brought into the temple where he is met with all these artifacts of ancient warriors. Now because Po is such a kung fu ass kicker stan, he is absolutely shook to his core, right? He knows what every single one of these items are and he is just so happy to be there. Po is then met with Master Shifu, who is incredibly rude and salty towards him for absolutely no reason, right? Another thing about the Dragon Warrior as well is that they get this scroll, like they get the dragon scroll, and basically they obtain it by reaching the highest level of kung fu. So Master Shifu basically informs Po of this. He's like, you will get the dragon scroll when you master the highest level of kung fu, which he has no confidence Po will be able to pull off, because you know Master Shifu can't see past the fact that Po is a big fat bastard. And I just think it's so rude, right? Because Po is an icon and we'll learn how iconic Po truly is. Now Po and Shifu go to the training room and are met with the Furious 5 who are in training. As I said, Po is a huge fan of kung fu, so he's a humongous fan of the Furious 5 and has like all their action figures and stuff, so he has a bit of like a stan moment, you know, like he's shook to his core. So Shifu tries to get Po to go through this obstacle course that the Furious 5 used to train, but he, as anyone would be, is spooked by this. He doesn't want to do it, he doesn't know how to do it. It's almost like Shifu just wants him to like hurt himself so that he'll want to leave, but Po's kind of like, nah, I don't really want to be doing that, my guy. However, Po accidentally falls into the obstacle course that he didn't want to go into, so you know, he's kind of made to do it anyway, and is absolutely violated my poor guy. Now Shifu thinks that by pushing Po to the extreme that he will quit and that they can make someone else the Dragon Warrior, but as I said, Po is an absolute optimist and he will not quit. Even him trying to get into the actual building to see who was going to be the Dragon Warrior, like he was so determined to do it, even though it seemed impossible. But Shifu thinks that pushing him to the extreme is going to make him quit, but we all know that that's just not the case. Now after this training scene, it is established to be nighttime and the Furious 5 are all walking back to their rooms, and while they're walking, they're having a bit of a bitch fest about Po and they're just dragging his good name through the mud, basically calling him a fat bastard, kind of the same as what Shifu did when he first met him as well. Absolute hools, absolute degenerates.
Stop hating on
Po.
for no reason!
Po does overhear this and is very hurt by their words, because you have to remember, like, he's like a really big fan of these guys, right? So it really does hurt him. However, he doesn't want to quit, so he makes his way to the bedrooms to try and see if he can find his own room, and accidentally walks into Crane's room and annoys him for a while. Now this scene is very awkward, but it is very iconic because it's just Jack Black and David Cross like talking to each other. I just think that's quite iconic, you know. Now Po then annoys everyone else, and Tigress then tells him that he doesn't belong in the temple and that he's a disgrace to kung fu, which is just so nasty and uncalled for, like my god. However, Po is hurt by this, so he leaves the rooms and tries to find, you know, a place to sit, maybe some food to eat, and he stumbles upon a peach tree and is then greeted by Oogway. Now Oogway and Po then have a heart to heart, and Oogway gives Po some very good advice, like advice too deep for a kids movie, you know. We are then brought back to Tai Lung, who uses the feather that fell into his cell from that duck to unlock his chains, and the prison goes on lockdown trying to stop him from escaping, and we are then met with one of the most iconic and legendary scenes in all of cinema. It also establishes the fact that Tai Lung truly is the ultimate ass kicker. Everyone is spooked to face him because they are cowards. Face him, you cowards. Now after an iconic fight scene where Tai Lung straight up kills a bunch of guards, he manages to escape, and he tells that wee duck to tell Shifu that the real Dragon Warrior is on his way home. What an absolute king. Low-key kinda rooting for him, to be honest. We are then brought back to the ass kickers, and after not being able to locate Po, they assume that he's got scared and pissed off home, and this makes them all very happy. However, when they enter the temple, they learn that Po has been there all night trying to train and trying to improve. However, his fat ass got stuck in this contraption, and so they have to help him out of that jam. Po agrees to do more training with the Furious 5, and he's just so happy to be there, like it's so wholesome. But they're basically just beating him up, like they're basically just like absolutely scalping him about, to be honest. Now Shifu basically boots Po out of the doors all the way down the stairs, and the ass kickers come to the conclusion that if Po is smart, he won't come back up, but they know that he will, and so they just go back in and wait for him to come back up again. When Po makes his way back up to them, him. He gets some acupuncture from Mantis and Viper, and this is the beginning of the Furious 5 actually becoming his friends, which is very wholesome to see. Tigress basically decides to tell Po the real story about Tai Lung, and they tell the story of how Shifu found Tai Lung as a baby and raised him as his own. He trained him in Kung Fu, and Tai Lung wanted to be the Dragon Warrior, and Shifu basically told him that he would be if he trained hard and stuff for it. However, Oogway said, no bitch, you're not going to be the Dragon Warrior, and Tai Lung, because of this, lost his tiny mind. Like, he just couldn't accept the fact that he had trained his entire life for this one goal and he was told no. So he had destroyed the entire valley in a fit of rage, and because of this it meant that Shifu had to take Tai Lung down, and that's why he was sent to prison. However, after the story, Tigress decides to again throw shade at Po by calling him a big fat bastard, which again is just very uncalled for, and we're also given this very iconic scene. Now while this is happening, Shifu is meditating, and he is then interrupted by the wee duck who tells him that Tai Lung has escaped, and basically this clicks in Shifu's mind that Oogway's prophecy was correct. So this causes Shifu to lose his tiny mind, and he runs to find Oogway to find out what he's meant to do. He tells Oogway that the vision was right and that Tai Lung has escaped. However, Oogway, as always, is absolutely unfazed and unbothered by this. This man just does not give a damn, and he basically tells Shifu that the Dragon Warrior will be able to stop him. However, Shifu is having absolutely none of it because he's Po's biggest hater and is like, how on earth is this big fat bastard panda meant to stop the icon that is Tai Lung? Master Shifu begs Oogway to help him figure out how Po is supposed to stop Tai Lung. However, instead of helping Shifu out, you know, helping him out of this jam, Oogway just decides to die. Like, he just decides to pass away, and this leaves Shifu absolutely shook and also confused because, like, what the hell has just happened? While Oogway's turning to dust, Po is making homies with the Furious 5 and decides to make them noodles because he is the noodle man. Now, this also helps to establish Po's love of food, which has been a theme throughout the entire movie. Now, Po then cosplays as Master Shifu with some noodles and bowls, right? You know, it's a giggle-worthy moment. However, he has a he's right behind me type of moment when Shifu appears right behind them and gives everyone into trouble for being silly while Tai Lung has escaped. He tells them all that Po is the only one who'll be able to stop him, and this freaks Po the hell out, and Po, for the first time, quits and runs away. However, Shifu follows Po and begs him to stay. Po basically says to him, like, you've been trying to get rid of me this entire time, and now because you need something from me, you want me to stay? How about you piss off? Now, Po and Shifu basically have a heart-to-heart. Well, Shifu basically tells Po that he will make him the Dragon Warrior. However, Po is having absolutely none of it, and we get this very iconic scene as well. Now, Tigress watches this exchange take place, and she decides that she must go and stop Tai Lung herself. However, she is then met with the other ass-kickers, the other Furious 5 members, and they tell her that they aren't going to let her go alone, so the Furious 5 go to try and stop Tai Lung. We then cut back to Shifu, who thinks that Po has went back to being the noodle man, you know. However, he finds Po in the kitchen eating the cookies and notices that he isn't just eating the cookies out of the cupboards, he's actually punched right through the wood to get the cookies, which is obviously a very badass thing to do, and it's not something that anyone could just do. Like, it's obviously a technique that takes like a lot of training to be able to like punch through wood, you know. That's like it's quite an iconic thing to do. So Shifu basically develops a new game theory, a new film theory if you will, and that theory is that Po is motivated by food. So in order to help Po become the warrior that Oogway knew he could be, they have to use food instead of normal kind of training techniques. Now Shifu decides to test out this theory by telling Po that Monkey keeps his snacks in the top cupboard, and he hides behind the door to see if Po will take the bait. And when he comes back round the door, Po is eating Monkey's snacks, but not only is he eating his snacks, he's basically like doing the splits in the air, and this is how Shifu basically knows that Oogway was right about Po and that he basically needs to use food in order to train him instead of the normal training techniques that he used for the rest of the ass kickers. So Shifu basically informs Po that he thinks that he can train him in a different way that he did with the Furious 5. Instead of using normal ass kicking techniques, he's gonna use food. Shifu then takes Po to the top of a mountain to train him, and as food is the best way to get through to him, he uses this to teach him the ways of kung fu, the ways of ass kicking if you will. Shifu begins to notice that Po is improving at a great speed, and maybe Master Oogway was right about him and that he'll be able to stop Tai Lung. The training process actually brings them closer together as well, and Shifu is no longer Po's biggest hater. We are then brought back to the Furious 5 who have finally made it to Tai Lung. Tigress meets with Tai Lung and he asks her about the Dragon Warrior. Tai Lung learns that the Dragon Warrior's name is Po, and he's glad that he's finally found a worthy opponent and states that their battle will be legendary. However, after uttering such an iconic line, Tigress boots him across the bridge and the two begin to fight, which then results in the Furious 5 all fighting against Tai Lung. However, despite the ass kicker's best efforts, they are no match for the icon, the king that is Tai Lung, and he manages to scalp them all about and wins the battle. We are then met with Po and Master Shifu who are having a cute wee chat. When the Furious 5 arrive back injured, they tell Shifu about the battle and that Tai Lung is stronger than he was was before, and Shifu tells Po that he's the only one who'll be able to stop Tai Lung. Po is spooked and shook to his core about this, as one would be, but Shifu tells him that he will have something that no one else in the world will have, the Dragon Scroll. Now Shifu decides Po's ready for the Dragon Scroll and decides to get it for him. However, when Po opens the Dragon Scroll, it is revealed to be blank and shows nothing but the reflection of whoever is looking at it. Po and Shifu are both bamboozled by this and they don't understand what it means. Now because of this, Shifu tells the ass kickers to evacuate everyone from the valley and that he will keep Tai Lung distracted so that everyone can escape. However, Shifu implies that he will probably die as a result of this, as Tai Lung will probably kick his ass so severe that he will perish away. You know. So they all say their goodbyes to each other and they go to evacuate the valley. This is so goddamn sad. Distraught, Po goes back to see his father at the noodle restaurant. Now Po and his father begin to pack all their stuff away and leave with the other citizens. However, his father notices that Po is shaking and crying from the fact that he wasn't able to stop Tai Lung and he wasn't able to become the Dragon Warrior. Now to make Po feel better, his father decides to tell him the secret ingredient to his special soup. Now Po is intrigued by this, as everyone else is. We're all on the edge of our seats waiting to see what the secret ingredient to this duck soup is. However, to everyone's absolute shock, the secret ingredient to the soup is nothing. There is no secret ingredient. Now after dropping this absolute bombshell, this absolute plot twist, if you will, Po's father then decides to drop the most inspiring quote I've ever heard in my entire life, which is, to make something special, you just have to believe that it's special. Now this quote sticks with Po, and Po takes out the Dragon Scroll again and looks at it, and looks at his own reflection, and it finally hits him that there is no special secret to being the Dragon Warrior. He's always been the Dragon Warrior just by being himself. Oh my god, this is so wholesome. Now after realising this, Po runs back to the temple to help his homie Master Shifu. At the temple, Tai Lung, our icon, has appeared. He emerges from the darkness. Now him and Shifu begin to fight and Tai Lung adds more lore to his villain backstory. Just a side note, I don't think Tai Lung was actually a villain, like at all. I really don't. I think he was just misunderstood and was failed by everyone around him. He has every right to be angry and pissed off. Like I would be pissed off if I was him as well, to be completely honest with you. Justice for my guy. Tai Lung demands that Shifu give him the Dragon Scroll. However, when Tai Lung looks up, he notices that the scroll is gone, and this fills him with absolute rage. My guy is pissed off beyond belief. Now Shifu tells him that the Dragon Warrior has took the scroll halfway across the country and that he'll never ever get to see it. Now as Shifu and Tai Lung are having a back and forth about the Dragon Scroll, they're interrupted by our guy Po, who tells Tai Lung that he is the Dragon Warrior, and Tai Lung thinks this is a very giggle-worthy moment because, as we've established, everybody sees Po as just being a big fat bastard. Nobody thinks that he is an ass kicker. However, Po is about to prove him very wrong. Now Tai Lung and Po then begin their absolutely epic and legendary battle as Tai Lung tries desperately to get the scroll away from Po. However, Po begins to use the lessons that he learned from Master Shifu while training, and this absolutely bamboozles Tai Lung, and he basically comes to the conclusion that the scroll must have given Po some sort of power. So this makes Tai Lung even more determined to get the scroll away from Po, and they continue to fight. Now Tai Lung actually manages to get the scroll from Po and opens it to see that there is nothing written on it and that it's just his reflection. Now Tai Lung is absolutely enraged by this because he has fought his entire life to get this scroll and it's just empty. He doesn't understand what it means. However, Po approaches him and tells him that he never understood it at first either, and that there is no secret ingredient, it's just you that makes you special. However, Tai Lung is absolutely not having this. He is pissed off beyond belief and he begins to fight with Po again. Now Po manages to boot Tai Lung in the air. However, before finally taking the L, Tai Lung decides to do something that everyone has done throughout this entire movie, and that is to comment about Po being a fat mess, right? However, Po is used to this. Po has been called fat and has been made fun of for his weight this entire movie. He does not give a damn, and this basically results in one of the greatest moments in cinematic history as Po informs Tai Lung that he is not a big fat panda, but he is in fact the big fat panda. Now Po then uses a very iconic move within the Kung Fu Panda cinematic universe and gets Tai Lung into the whooshy finger hold. However, before Po actually does it, he decides to utter his iconic catchphrase, skadoosh, and sends Tai Lung to the spirit realm. Now the citizens all return to the valley and we get a callback to the first scene in the movie where Po is finally the legendary warrior man that he dreamed about being. The citizens then celebrate Po and thank him for saving them, and just like in his dream, the Furious Five show Po the respect he truly deserves. However, Po in that moment remembers Master Shifu is still in a bad way and goes to find him. Po manages to find Shifu and Shifu is still in a bad way, and Po tells him that he defeated Tai Lung. Shifu tells Po that Oogway was right and that Po had not only brought peace to the valley but also brought peace to Shifu. It then appears that Shifu also just dies. However, a plot twist occurs as it is just a fake out and he is just meditating. Po then lies beside Shifu and they both meditate together, with the movie ending with Po asking Shifu if he wants to go and get food. Very, very wholesome. And the movie finally finishes with the most iconic song, Kung Fu Fighting, covered by CeeLo Green over the credits, and with that, this absolute masterpiece is concluded. Kung Fu Panda was incredibly successful at the box office, with a budget of $130 million and managed to gain back around $631.7 million. The movie held the title of DreamWorks' best performing non-Shrek movie until 2010, when it was overtaken by How to Train Your Dragon. Now, Kung Fu Panda is also a very critically acclaimed movie as well, with most critics enjoying the movie very much, which isn't surprising considering how god-worthy it truly is. Now, the movie was also nominated for a bunch of awards, including a Critics' Choice Award as well as a Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature. However, it managed to win some Annie Awards as well as a Kids' Choice Award for Jack Black's performance as Po. With the success of Kung Fu Panda, DreamWorks realised the potential that this world and characters had, and in turn the Kung Fu Panda cinematic universe was created, with a whole ass franchise being established, with 3 other movies, TV shows, video games, books, which have all been a huge blessing to everyone living within our society. Now, most DreamWorks movies have had a humongous impact on internet culture, and Kung Fu Panda is absolutely no exception to this. One way in which the movie has impacted internet culture is through scenes or moments from the movie going viral on social media platforms such as TikTok and X. Now, an example of a scene that this has happened to is the scene where Oogway passes away. Now, this scene has been used for many different purposes, with some people either using it to show how heartbreaking and soul-crushing the scene truly is, and this is usually done through edits on social media platforms such as TikTok, or it's used as a meme template. Now, another scene that has had an impact on internet culture is the scene where the Furious 5 go to fight with Tai Lung, to scalp him about, if you will. Now, this scene has impacted internet culture because not only is it very iconic, but before they actually begin to fight, they're talking about who the Dragon Warrior is, and Tai Lung basically states one of the most iconic quotes in cinematic history, which is, "Finally a worthy opponent, our battle will be legendary." Now, people either use this scene to show how badass Tai Lung truly is in like edits and stuff like that, which we'll get onto kind of later on in this section, or they'll use that quote as a meme template as well. However, I think the part of the movie that has impacted internet culture the most is the final battle between Po and Tai Lung. There are many moments throughout this scene that have impacted internet culture for the better. For example, this scene here where Po basically uses the bamboo sticks to hide the dragon scroll under the pots and pans and swaps them about has become a meme template. However, another meme to develop from this particular part of the scene is this image here of Tai Lung looking at his computer. Now, this image comes from Tai Lung's face when Po does this absolute power move. However, this image was actually edited back in 2022 and went absolutely viral on social media platforms, but especially on Twitter, specifically Stan Twitter. Now, the image is mostly used as like a reaction picture that people post on Twitter or X or whatever when they're replying to people if they've said something absolutely insane or out of pocket. However, the final moment from the battle where Tai Lung calls Po a big fat panda and Po replies with, "I'm not a big fat panda, I'm the big fat panda," and banishes him to the spirit realm, not only impacted our whole society, but also impacted internet culture as well. This scene is often used in edits to show how iconic Po is and how iconic the Kung Fu Panda movie truly is. However, the reason that this scene is so iconic is because this is where we heard the first ever skadoosh. This is where the first skadoosh was uttered, and this went on to become Po's catchphrase that he says in every movie, and it also became a meme as well. Now, another way that the movie has impacted internet culture is in the form of fan edits on social media platforms, but especially on TikTok. Now, every fandom will usually create fan edits for the characters and for specific scenes within the movie or within the piece of media. However, the Kung Fu Panda edits are unlike anything else. People go all out for these edits and will use these scenes that I spoke about as well as others to convey how badass and how iconic the movie truly is. However, the character that I think gets the most fan edits has to be Tai Lung, with people creating edits to show how iconic, how powerful and how god-worthy the character truly is. And these edits got even more popular when it was announced that Tai Lung would be returning for Kung Fu Panda 4. in conclusion, Kung Fu Panda will always be a top tier movie to me. The fact that it has managed to maintain its reputation as one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces to ever be created, through the characters, the plot and the giggles it provides, proves why it is truly a godsend of a movie.